This has gotten just completely wild at this point, as articles have linked the San Antonio Spurs to multiple star-level players, one in free agency and one via trade, as the Spurs are on the verge of entering their playoff and contention window with Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, and so much more. Naturally, there's a lot of talk about who the Spurs can bring in to just bolster the roster. We got to dive into the two latest names that have surfaced, all that plus more coming up on this episode of Spurs Digest, and we're going to start with a certain player north of the border, actually, up in Canada, a Toronto Raptors player by the name of Brandon Ingram. And there's a Clutch Points article that highlights a few targets for the San Antonio Spurs, at least to keep an eye on this season. But I wanted to pick Brandon Ingram in specific. We might go into some other names in some other videos, but let's start here. So you can see here from the article from Rohan and Clutch Points, Brandon Ingram is a name that fits seamlessly into San Antonio's current trajectory. For the Spurs, Ingram's value is obvious. Wembanyama is already proving to be a defensive anchor and offensive hub, but what he lacks right now is a consistent perimeter partner who can punish defenses when attention shifts entirely onto him. Ingram is that player. And in a vacuum, if you just take what I just said, yeah, I kind of tend to agree. Like, he does fit. Like, if we just, I might have just spoiled the other thing. Don't go rewind, or do if you want. You probably saw it in the thumbnail. It doesn't matter. If you look at the roster right now, and you just slot a Brandon Ingram style player in here, let's ignore the cap hit. I know we can't just ignore that, but just in terms of just play style, right? You slide a Brandon Ingram in here, a guy who can be an on-ball scorer, but also can be an off-ball scorer, with De'Aaron Fox slashing, Victor Wembanyama doing everything that he's going to do, which is just going to get crazier by the year. A Brandon Ingram style player actually does make a lot of sense with this roster. The problem, again, when it comes to Brandon Ingram is not whether he makes sense in terms of play style, it's how much you'd have to give up to get him. And then in the longer term, if you want to keep him around for a while, how much money are you gonna have to put towards him? Because it's not just an easy thing. You have to take on the current contract that he has, which is not small, and then you also have to look, if you want to keep him around longer term with Wemby, how much do you have to pay him then? And I know he came off he's been hurt a bit. He hasn't been in the ideal situation, and now trying to start a nice season in Toronto, but 22.2 points per game, 5.6 rebounds per game, 5.2 assists. He does a bit of everything, and there are moments where he has some positive defensive strides. I mean, he's a long player. Like, he can get some steals, he can get some blocks. It's not his forte to be a lockdown perimeter defender or anything, but he's capable. But again, that 3-point percentage, 37%. But when you watch Brandon Ingram, a lot of those threes that he takes are, not a lot of them are off the dribble, but he creates a good amount of his own. You can see 16.3% of all his threes this year were unassisted, 84% of them were assisted. So he did take a decent amount. It's like, if he was just a spot up shooter, the number, at least in my mind, especially with the takes that he could get with De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama feeding him, could make sense. But I mean, like, at the end of the day, though, if we come back and look at the roster here and we look at the payroll, where does he fit? And this kind of goes into the next point as well, because this is where I'm just saying it's getting kind of wild, getting kind of ridiculous, because we're talking about these star level players are going to demand so much money. How do you justify fitting them in when you're going to need to extend Jeremy Sochan, which is still not done yet? You're going to need to extend Wemby after the 26-27 season. Yes, Barnes, Olynyk are coming off the books. You could get rid of Keldon Johnson. I just got his jersey, by the way. It was on sale. It's really cool. You might see that in the video in the next couple of days. Shout out Keldon Johnson. I still like Keldon Johnson. And Devin Vassell's contract is movable. But, like, honestly, to me, and maybe I want your guys' input here, like, is Brandon Ingram actually that much of a better fit on this team, if you account for the contract as well, than Devin Vassell? I'm not actually even sold that he is. Like, yeah, I understand that in a vacuum, he is a great player. He's an all-star. Like, the dude is phenomenal. Like, and when he's healthy, the dude can be a 25, 26 point per game scorer. But I'm just not convinced that for what his role would be with the Spurs, that he's actually that much better than a Devin Vassell type. And I know there's a lot of conversations about Vassell as well as to whether he is actually a fit, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Maybe I'm the crazy one here. Like, I understand the fit from one side, but in terms of the money and in terms of who we already have, and in terms of the fact that this person's probably going to be a 3 option, maybe a 2A, 2B with De'Aaron Fox in the short term, as Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper start to develop, they're going to try and take that spot. I don't really see it. I see Vassell filling that role better. And anyway, I'd love to get your thoughts on that, because we do have to move on, but I'm just not sold on this. And just like I'm not sold on this other thing. And I feel like now it's gotten to the point where, and I said this would come, right? Victor Wembanyama, he's going to get people, first of all, hating the Spurs, which has not really happened yet because Wemby is still very likable, though you're starting to see a bit of a shift. But what you are starting to see as well is that Wemby, who looks like he is really going to be the face of the league for many years to come, you're starting to see a lot of these rumors start to circle around the San Antonio Spurs when we're linking to good players. And the most recent one I wanted to dive into is a certain guy out of LA, and that's Austin Reaves. And this comes from Anthony Urban, also a Clutch Points. Again, both these articles linked down below. Please go check them out. In his article, he says, in all likelihood, Reaves will turn down his player option after this season and could command a contract in the ballpark of $30 to $35 million per year. And, you know, with the cap going up and up and up, 30 to 35, it sounds scarier, I think, than it is when you have your superstars making 50 to 60 million. So like you kind of think of this as like, in a way, like just over half of a max contract, which I think is not that crazy when, you know, if you think back to like the 35 million max contract days, it's the equivalent of like a $17 million player. I know it's not as black and white as that, but that's kind of how I start to see it. So I don't think it's ridiculous in terms of a percentage of the cap. What I don't love, though, is what I heard here. Again, maybe this is just me not just feeling like we don't really need to change anything. It's like I'm happy with what we got, but anyway, I got to go over this. Anthony said if/when Reaves opts out of his current contract, he'll be an unrestricted free agent with plenty of interest. League sources say the San Antonio Spurs and other teams are keeping a close eye on Reaves' free agency. And this is not the first time we're talking about the San Antonio Spurs and Austin Reaves. And, you know, again, in a vacuum, he kind of makes sense, right? The dude shot 45% on corner threes. He shot 38% from three in general. He averaged 20 points, 6 assists a game, 4.5 boards. He's a guy that makes a lot of sense on a lot of teams. But it's just one of these other things. Like, I think Reaves, I don't know, maybe this is a weird take. Is Reaves a better fit than Brandon Ingram? Like, on the San Antonio Spurs? Anyway, that's maybe a question for you as well. But Reaves, again, is more of a guard role, right? Like, he's 6'5". Like, he could play the 3, but he's definitely more of a 2. Like, he's got a good passing game as well. Like, he's going to want the ball in his hands. And I just wonder where the fit is, right? And I look here, again, the article said what I'm hearing, how Austin Reaves can prove to the Lakers he's worth $35 million. It's like, someone's going to pay him that. Like, someone is. Let's just be real. A 20-point per game scorer that can bring some shooting, that can play on ball, have the ball in his hands a lot, and be effective with other good players around him. It's like, again, in terms of percentage of the cap or percentage of a max contract, you could justify that one way or another. But if you look at the Spurs, I can't. Not for this team. And again, the payroll is just like, where do you fit that? Like, I don't know. You do have ways to make this work. Again, like Harrison Barnes, Kelly Olynyk's contracts coming off the books. You can trade Vassell, you can trade Keldon Johnson, the same names we always throw around there. And like, you can make the money work, but I think making the money work for a guy like Austin Reaves, that to me, like, might raise your championship ceiling, is just such a big gamble. Like, and I feel the San Antonio Spurs at this point, and I think a lot of you will agree with me, why would we need to gamble so early at this point? There's the argument on the one side of maximize Victor Wembanyama's young years while he's on his rookie scale deal, because, you know, there's also the crowd that always says you can't guarantee he's going to be healthy forever. You can't guarantee that for any player, but I do acknowledge the fact that players of his build, minus like Kareem, have had short careers, right? Like, that's just a thing. Like, they are more injury prone. Ralph Sampson's the one everyone always throws out there. The Kareem really wasn't hurt that much, and he did a lot of the same yoga stuff that Wemby does. I digress. But, you know, you want to maximize the years that Wemby is not only probably healthy, but on his rookie scale deal. So winning now does kind of matter, and that's part of the reason we extended Fox, trying to get in the early part of Wemby's career. But at the same time, do you really want to gamble? Especially, like, unless Wemby shows something absolutely insane, and it's so clear that a player of Austin Reaves' archetype is just the perfect fit for the Spurs, and we can climb that hump right now. But I don't see a world where that ever happens, right? So all is that to say, like, I'm seeing these things out there, and I really do love that big name players like Ingram, like Reaves, like so many other names are being talked about with the Spurs. Larry Markkanen's another one that is, I saw another thing today. He's floated out there every single day. These big name players, these all-star caliber players are linked to the Spurs day and night because they know the San Antonio Spurs are the next great team in this league with Victor Wembanyama, with Fox, whatever. Whether people like it or not, the Spurs are here to stay. Wemby is going to be the face of this league. So trying to pair stars with him, hey, it makes a lot of sense. But again, the Spurs way doesn't seem to pass the vibe check here with these names. Could they improve the team? Yeah, in the short term, I think they could. But looking at the money, looking at the way this team is built, looking at the fact it would be a big gamble on something that is not guaranteed to pay off when you already have a lot of players that you kind of know what you're getting, I'm not sold on it, but maybe you are. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this down below, because that will do it for this episode. But hey, if you enjoyed and you want content all season long, hit that free subscribe button. We're here all season long for all the latest news. And if you want to stay up to date, I don't know any better place. Hit that button down below. Thank you so much for watching. I've been your host, Josh Gosse, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.